This further, we're now joined from our Pretoria studio by the Deputy Director General at the Department of Trade and Industry, Xolelwa Mlumbi-Peter. Thank you for being with us, Ms. Mlumbi-Peter. You say we are collateral damage here in a much bigger issue. Explain.
Yes, because this issue is clear to us that it's not because South Africa is a threat to U.S. national security as well as U.S. industries, because our exports account for only 1.6% of imports of the U.S. in total, and also only 0.98% when it comes to steel. So if you look at those numbers, we are not a significant exporter to the U.S., so it is not clear to us why the U.S. will therefore decide not to exempt South Africa given the insignificance of our exports.
Well, are we really collateral damage? Because many countries did get exemptions. Why are they better off? What are they doing right? What are we doing wrong? Do you not have any idea?
We really do not have a sense as to why others are exempted and why are not. The only reason we're given as to why South Africa is not included was that the U.S. has taken a decision not to expand the list of countries that it would want to exempt. And if you look at the countries that have been exempted, they account for 58% in terms of exports of steel and 49% in terms of aluminium. So they are significant exporters into the U.S., while South Africa is really not.
Could this be a relationship problem? Because when the whole issue of poultry imports was in the spotlight, there were long and bitter negotiations with U.S. trade officials. Do we have a problem in our relations with U.S. officials?
I won't say there is a problem with relations between South Africa and the U.S. because South Africa is not the only country that is affected. There are a number of countries globally that will also be facing these duties. And actually we enjoy very good relations with the U.S. If you look at our trade relations, our trade is increasing, and there's a small trade balance in favor of South Africa, and our trade is also complementary. Also with regards to steel, what we have emphasized in our submissions to the U.S. is that the trade is complementary because we are exporters of very niche products into the U.S., but also we are exporters of semi-processed products that go into further manufacturing activities in the U.S. So if you look at the type of trade that we have, it is mutually beneficial, and we are of the view that there are other ways of dealing with any concerns that the U.S. may have, which is why in our statement we emphasize that we remain open to engage the U.S. with regards to this matter.
Given these submissions, this is a huge defeat, even more so if we can't even threaten U.S. companies, if we're that insignificant in terms of those exports. Tell us about our lobbying efforts. What did we do, and is there something we could have done better?
I think we did everything that we could. We've had a number of engagements at the highest level. The minister has had a number of engagements with his counterpart through the teleconferences that we've had. Also, our ambassador based in Washington has been engaging with U.S. authorities. We've also made 2 formal submissions, and the first submission, the U.S. requested further information, which we provided through a supplementary submission. And we responded to all the questions that the U.S. asked, including giving comfort to the U.S. that we won't be used as a conduit to export steel from third countries, because we have very good customs measures in South Africa, and we cooperate with the U.S. authorities very well with regards to customs procedures. So we really responded in terms of also indicating to the U.S. that we are willing to accept a quota based on the 2017 figure, which is the basis on which South Korea, for example, was exempted. So in our view, we responded to all the questions. We have provided adequate information that was required, which was the criteria that was used to decide whether to exempt the countries or not.
All right, so you're saying this is very unfair. What can be done?
Well, we continue to engage the U.S. authorities, and the other important avenue would be for our companies to submit or lobby their own buyers in the U.S. to submit the necessary request for exemption at a product level, because there are two processes. The first process is to ask for a country exemption, which we have not succeeded. The other avenue is a product exemption, and we are aware that our companies have been engaging their buyers, and some of the buyers have already submitted requests for exemption of South African products, which are currently under consideration by the Department of Commerce.
All right, but that involves U.S. companies spending time lobbying for SA companies. My final question, how serious? We're talking about 7,500 possible job losses. I remember years ago the big issue was cheap steel imports coming from China affecting our industry here. What sort of shape is the industry in, and how big is the damage here?
Well, I think the starting point is that already the whole global industry is affected by the global steel glut, which is an oversupply of steel that is currently in the global market. And this is an issue that is under discussion at a multilateral level through the OECD as well as the G20 Global Steel Forum. So we have been active as a country to engage in those global efforts so that we can find an amicable solution on how we can ensure that we have a viable steel industry. But also, in addition, as a country, we have taken measures to protect our own industry, because this global steel glut has had an impact on our industry, and we have already lost some capacity, productive capacity, as a result of this. So really this is a double blow. But as I said, we have already taken measures to try and address the concerns that has been raised by our steel sector. We have increased duties to the maximum level that is allowed in the WTO in terms of primary steel. We have also increased the duties to the maximum in terms of the downstream steel. We have also implemented some safeguard measures to try and curb an increase in imports.
All right, thank you very much for your time tonight. This was Xolelwa Mlumbi-Peter from the Department of Trade and Industry, and it seems like government is not sure why, but we've been defeated in this matter with huge implications after the US said we will not be exempt. So that means that we will face higher tariffs when exporting steel and aluminium to the United States.